seem pretty like no duh as we do it. You're gonna be like, yeah, that makes sense. But there are some really important parts about this that we really need to make sure that we understand, that we have a good concept of before we move on. Okay, so first off, I'm going to just set these things aside. So if you have your 3 pieces of paper, just set them aside for a moment. Okay, first off, let's define what it means to have congruent polygons.
What does that word congruent mean? We use that one a lot. What is congruent?
If a segment is congruent to another segment, they're equal. Good. So in this case, when we have polygons, what does polygons mean again? It's just a shape. So when we look at congruent shapes, can shapes be equal?
All the sides are the same size.
Good. So same size. And they have to be the same shape. Generally speaking, I can't have a pentagon and then say a hexagon is congruent. That wouldn't be the same. Owen started alluding to this next part. He gave us a little bit of a hint. He said that all the sides have to be the same. That's true. That's going to be part of our corresponding parts. Okay, so for corresponding parts, that means we're going to match between the congruent polygons, those congruent shapes. We're going to match the angles. And we are going to match the sides. So corresponding angles really just tells us what matches. So we're going to have matching angles, matching sides. Alright, so we're going to paste in this very first one. This is the one that's 4-sided shapes. It has P, Q, R, S, and then a D, G, F, E. We're going to glue that in for our first example. So you want out your glue stick, and then we are going to use some color pencils here. So I would take out colored pencils. You're going to use actually quite a few of them, so have them all out ready to go. And we're going to name the corresponding angles, and we're going to name the corresponding sides. So get that glued in, and then you can go ahead and label this after you get glued in. I glued it in on the left side, and then I'm writing my work on my right side. Alright, so if I look at angle Q. Angle Q had those two arcs. If you can see it. I know on yours it's probably a little bit better. Yep. That didn't work better. What angle is congruent to angle Q on the other polygon? Which one had two arcs? Angle F has two arcs. So angle Q is congruent to angle F. I kind of ruined it by putting those in, but pretend that it was really awesome. Good job, Miss Morrell. Thank you, guys. I'm a professor. I'm a professional. Yep, I'm a professor also. Just kidding, I'm not, but I was going to say that. All right, angle G. What is angle G congruent to? Angle P, how did you know? They have one arch. Okay, what about angle D? How many arcs does angle D have? I think I had 4. What's congruent to angle D? Angle S. And then lastly we have angle R is congruent to angle E. That's not true, Owen. Lies. Because it has 3 arcs. I made it too small though, so it's hard to tell. Angle R is congruent to angle E. So to show that two polygons are congruent, we have to not only show all the angles are the same, that there's a matching angle from one to the other, but we also have to show the matching sides. Okay, so if I start with QP, side QP is congruent to side what? How did you know? Good. It has one tick mark, and what else has one tick mark? FG. Or I can think what matched with Q. F. What matches with P? G. So QP matches with FG. You could say GF. That's fine too. Okay, what about PS? How many tick marks does PS have? I think 2. If you need to make them a little bit better, 2. So what matches PS? DG. If we wanted to match our angles as we went with that, we could say DG or we might say GD. Either way. I'm going to do it in the same order that I did my first one. So since P matches with G, I know it's G, and S matches with D. Okay, what about SR? SR has how many ticks? I think it was supposed to be 3. So if you need to make it 3, make it 3. So what's going to match with SR? DE. And I could tell that right here from angle S, from that point S to R, the point that matched with S was D. And then the point that matches with R is E. Did I do all of the sides? I see there's 4 sides. What side did I miss so far?
I don't know.
R to Q. What is RQ? That has 4 tick marks. E to F. And I know that because R is the same as E, and E is the same as F. So we're really just lining up which side goes with which. When we say these are the same, it doesn't look exactly like a copy and paste. If I did Command C, Command V, or Control C, Control V, it did come out exactly the same. It looks like they might have flipped it upside down. I think they flipped it and just rotated it maybe a little bit. But here we can see the parts now that are congruent. So we're going to write what's called a congruence statement. And what a congruence statement is it allows us to show, based on just one sentence, all this information. So rather than writing this out every single time, saying angle Q is congruent to angle F, angle P is congruent to angle G, angle S is congruent to angle D, angle R is congruent to angle E, QP is congruent to FG, PS is congruent to GD, SR is congruent to DE, RQ is congruent to EF. Rather than doing all of that work, we can just write one congruence statement. So for the congruence statement, we're going to start on one of the shapes. These shapes are just polygons. We don't have triangles yet, so we're going to say polygon. And we're going to name the points in the first polygon in any order we want, as long as they connect to each other. Okay? So Hamza, what point do you want to start at in our first polygon? F. Okay. So polygon F. And then after F, that's this one. What do we want to go to next? G? Is that what you guys said? No? G? Okay, so polygon F, G, D, E. So that's just the first one. It doesn't matter how we go in order of the first one, as long as it goes like the sides connect. We can't go across it all of a sudden. It's going to be congruent to polygon. Now when we do the second one, we want it to match. So I know we did all of this work. We set all the angles. We set all of the sides. But I want it just to match here so I can tell that person exactly all this information. So what angle did F line up with? Q. What did G line up with? P. D lines up with S. And E lines up with R. So anytime that we look at one angle, we can match F with Q, G with P, D with S, E with R. Or we can look at it as two things at the same time. We could look at DE. And I know the segment that connects DE is going to be congruent to the segment that connects SR, because they're both the last two in each of those statements. Or the segment that connects G to D would be the segment that congruent to the segment that connects P to S. Alright, we're going to do number 2. We're going to glue in this one right here. It's okay if these two take up if you're at the end of your page after these two, because the proof is going to for sure take up a couple of lines in the next page. So now we're gluing in these two triangles. this is problem number 2. I'm going to write this congruence statement a little bit bigger here because I want to be able to color it. So I'm going to write it a little bit bigger. I know it was on there already, but we didn't make that up. That's what was given to us. Okay, so that's what we were given. And based on our given here, we want to now say, what do we know is the same? Which angles could I say are congruent? Which sides? Because if we look at this triangle and this triangle, do they look exactly the same? How do you know that just the way that they are, it doesn't mean they're exactly the same? What's kind of different? Yeah, one's taller than the other. So instantly when we look at it, we're like, really? Those are the same? But based on that congruence statement, that's going to tell us what's the same and what's not the same. You might have turned, did you turn it in earlier this week? Okay. Okay. I haven't updated that in a while, sorry. Okay, so based on this, we're going to be able to tell which angles go with which. And it might not be that L goes with I. In our brain, we orient things the way that they're just set up. That's the way we look at it. Okay, we say, yep, this is this, this is this. They're not the same. But in this problem, we know K. Color that a little dark. Angle K is going to match what other angle? It's going to match angle I, because those were named the first in each of the congruent statements. So I'm going to mark angel, oh my goodness. Angle K with one arc, which means angle I also gets one arc. So these are actually the angles that line up. Then if we look at angle L, what's going to line up with angle L? H, because they're both in that second spot. So they're both going to get 2 arcs. Okay, we don't want just one arc. Why is it important we do 2 instead of just 1? Yeah, they're not congruent to the other one. So we have to make sure that we show that they're congruent just to the opposite. Okay, and then what other angles are going to be congruent? M&M. You have M&Ms with you today? Oh, I was thinking of candy. M&Ms are like my favorite. If anyone ever wants to make my day. Just kidding. Just show up to class. That's what makes my day. Alright, so we know that angle M is going to align with angle M. So M. So it's like they took this triangle and it's like they just flipped it. They kind of rotated it clockwise. Okay. So now we also need to mark the sides. So when we look at the sides, we can look at it kind of compared to which colors we're going in between, or we can look at our congruence statement here. Okay. KL is the first 2 letters. So if I look at K to L, I'm going to mark that 1. because that's the first two. That's going to be congruent to the first two over here. IH. So KL is the same as IH. Since we already marked our angles, another way we can think about it is like L to M. In mine, I did that between the green and red, so I know the side that connects my green to red is the same. So you can look at it that way, or you can think LM are the last two, so HM are the last two. And then for the last one, you can kind of look at, it's goofy. It's like the outside letters, K goes with M. So that segment, K to M, those were the outside letters. So I'm going to match that with these outside letters, I and M. Alright, we are going to just pause for just a moment here. So set your book just aside, keep it open. We're not done yet. We still have a proof we need to write in there. But we're going to do some practice. So everyone's going to take out a whiteboard.